If some people, some advocates want to come up to the front, this is about us. This is a big day for us, so we'd love to have you. Gold shirts are cool, but we'll take you however you're dressed.
As long as you're dressed.
To that. All right. So, good afternoon. I'm Sarah Fox, CEO of the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, and I am honored to welcome you to the kickoff of the Connecticut Can End Homelessness Campaign legislative agenda. Thank you to all of you who are here, who made your way to Hartford today. Your presence matters, because what we're talking about is not abstract. It's life and dignity. It's whether our neighbors make it through the night, and I want to say this clearly at the outset, even in a moment and a time as hard as this one. I am here with hope because we're together, and together we can solve homelessness. It takes all of us. I also want to recognize the amazing leadership of the Housing Committee and the End Homelessness Caucus who are here standing alongside us. Thank you for meeting the moment with courage and for the seriousness and choosing to be part of this work every single day. I want to ground us in something personal. Homelessness is not just a talking point for me. I've experienced homelessness and housing instability. I know what it feels like when your world is shifting, when you don't have a place to lay your head. Those moments, they're tenuous. They're heart-wrenching. It's awful. That experience is why I'm here. I refuse to accept to live in a Connecticut where this is a normal thing. I choose to stand in a Connecticut where we support our neighbors, where we do better, where we prevent, we solve, we prevent, we respond, and we solve homelessness. And today, we need to name what is happening around us. It is frigid today, and it's going to be colder. For someone with a home, this is an inconvenience. For someone who is without one, this is a death sentence. This is simply not weather. This is a public health emergency. And earlier this week, we held a cold weather emergency call where we met with providers providing outreach and services across the state, with shelter teams and first responders who are out doing this work day in and day out. On that call, we heard about many of our neighbors outside being identified outside into severe distress, with some having icicles clinging to their body when they've been brought inside, many with frostbite. People described as literally clinging to life, and that should stop us in our tracks. Because in Connecticut, survival should not depend on luck, timing, or our zip code. And before we go any further, I'd like to pause for a moment of silence for the people who have died outside this winter because they had nowhere safe to go. Each one was someone who mattered. Thank you. I also want to recognize the helpers, the outreach workers, the shelter teams, the warming center staff, the United Way of Connecticut 211, the EMTs, police and fire, our public health partners and volunteers who are doing extraordinary work with compassion and grit. And I want to acknowledge the state's leadership, the governor, legislators, the Department of Housing Commissioner, the Deputy Commissioner, DMIS, DSS, our municipal officials, and many others who have mobilized resources and manpower to protect our neighbors from the cold. We appreciate and we uphold that work. It reflects Connecticut at its best, and it's the kind of leadership that will define us in the years to come. What we are here to say is this: the need is far outpacing our capacity. Frontline teams are doing everything possible, but we need predictable, we need life-saving resources in place so that when the next emergency hits, protecting human life is not dependent on extraordinary measures. Here are the facts that matter most. Homelessness in Connecticut has increased 44% since 2021. In 2025, we've had more than 8,000 people experiencing homelessness in our state, and 35% of them were unsheltered, which means they're living outside in places unfit for human habitation, in tents, in cars, in parking lots. This is not a moral failing. It is a predictable outcome of a housing market that is far out of reach for too many of our neighbors. What we know is that the leading cause of homelessness today across the state is eviction. It's people falling out of housing. It's people not being able to afford a place to live across the state of Connecticut. And we also know this: housing is the only way that we can solve homelessness. Full stop. And so today, this legislative agenda is about assuring we have the right supports in place to respond to homelessness as it arises. So fewer people fall into it, fewer people remain stuck in it, and fewer people live outside while we scale the housing solutions we know work. Our framework is simple. It's prevent, it's respond, and it is house. You're going to hear from many amazing speakers and legislators today who commit every single day of their life to this incredible cause. We can do this. We can make this work. Here is our legislative agenda. If you haven't seen it, my team has it, and they will pass it out. This is our work this year. This is how we save lives together. We galvanize to get the resources we need so death is not an outcome and no one again ever dies across the state of Connecticut. We must do better. We must save lives, and we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm the chair of the Housing Committee, co-chair of the Housing Committee, State Rep. Antonio Felipe. I want to say first to anybody who's sitting either to my right or to my left or directly in front of me, if you want to come up here, please do. We have the privilege of working in this building, but these buildings are yours. So please, if you want to join us, you can. I get nervous every time. Somebody's in the lights. I get nervous every time I get up here and I sit in these rooms, whether it's here for a press conference or for my housing committee, but I remind myself to stay grounded by saying that today is a good day to have a good day. But let's talk about folks who are not having such a good day. It's 25 degrees outside. And it's 25 degrees outside, and I'll tell you, yesterday I wanted to go outside in a t-shirt when it was 30 because it's been so much colder over the last few weeks, and you can see all the snow on the ground in some of our municipalities, and you notice that you might be driving down a plowed street and look to the side, and those sidewalks aren't so plowed or so clear. And there are people walking with holes in their shoes through that snow every day with no shelter to go to. They're walking without jackets. They are sitting somewhere on a bench, laying down throughout the night because they don't have a tent, a jacket, shoes without holes in them. These things for us are just what we put on before we leave the house, or something that we have in the back of our Honda CRV. But for these folks, this is protection. These are life-saving things to have. And when you think of the crisis that people are in, you have to really take onus. Sarah Fox told me earlier today that this is one of the more robust legislative agendas that they've had in a long time, and said it almost apprehensive, like, oh my God, how are we going to get this done? This is a statement of need. This is what we need to make sure that people are okay here in the state of Connecticut. I stayed up last night and I was thinking of all the things I want to say. I want to say that Connecticut is a place where we want to make sure that everybody has a place to live because housing is a human right. I want to say that we are a place where you can stay warm and stay healthy. I want to say that we are a place that will eradicate homelessness. But if we do not act on this agenda, if we do the same thing we do every year where we ask for 80% of what we need and deliver 40% or half of what they asked for, that we're going to be okay. That's not where we are right now. I'm going to say it again. This is not an agenda. This is a statement of need. People are in need right now. When 25 degrees is one of the warmer days of the week. When people have to sit there and sleep through that, it was 25 degrees and sunny. It might feel a little bit better when you're in the sun. What about when you're sitting there curled up in a corner late at night? We are in a place right now where people are scared, where people are in the worst financial position they've been in a long time. Affordability is not something that's going away. We have an affordability crisis just like we have a housing crisis.
That's right.
And that's going to make more people have to put aside so many things just to protect their families. This is an agenda, this is not an agenda, it is a statement of need. And it is what we need to make sure that we're saving lives here in the state of Connecticut. So I ask everybody, look at these proposals, follow us in the Housing Committee, and when we as legislators or somebody who is in a position of power, 187 of us, or the one person who is fortunate enough to be able to call himself governor of the state of Connecticut, when you look at us, do not let us make excuses for you or excuses to you. There's no way that we should be doing that. When we give you reasons to give up, please give us 2 or 3 reasons to keep fighting, because that's what we need to do. And that is why last year I founded the End Homelessness Caucus, and it's my pleasure to introduce the co-chair of that caucus, Mr. Kadeem Robbins.
I already got to say too much. They done said it already. Good morning. Tomorrow's going to be, I think, minus, right? Y'all heard about the weather tomorrow? All right, cool. So we on that same agenda. We understand the weather. I got that off the picture now. Thank you. Thank you to the CAN. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Also got to say thank you to Journey Home for introducing someone like me that comes from this environment to understand that there's businesses, there's networking opportunities, there's nonprofits that actually help you house your homes when you are homeless and you find that property. I gotta say thank you to the Pacific House for allowing me to come into your facility and show me what you guys have going on in Stamford, right next door to Norwalk. And Open Doors, thank you so much. And Homes with Hope, thank you for everything you always do in the community in Fairfield County, because you guys always have the doors open. And thank you to Bridgeport for always being aware. Thank you for emailing me and keeping me on my toes and telling me what's going on in your city. My condolences to the person that you guys just lost this week. Now to the agenda. Rep. Felipe told you guys his statement. Take that, hold that, and use that. We're asking again for a substantial amount of money, but we're doing the work. Prevent, respond, and house has always been a big thing. Are we preventing? We are. Are we housing? We are. Are we responding? We are. But now it gets to the point where it's cold outside, it gets to the point where we're not getting the amount of money that we need. So all of these things that we want can't happen. So as a caucus for the End Homelessness Caucus, I truly appreciate and I stand by this agenda. It hurts me to see, once again, we live in a wealthy, wealthy, wealthy state, and we can't seem to cure this crisis. So I think that, I know that this is the year that we stop the crisis, one, but 8,000 may not seem like a large number to people. That's fine, but that's 8,000 funerals you might walk into. That's 8,000 people that you could take $2 out your pocket and give them a meal. So to the advocates in this room, thank you so much for always providing services and going out there and fighting for this cause. But to my colleagues that don't understand this, I need you to open your eyes and wake up. To the governor's office, we love and truly support your mission. We also want you to help out as well. Thank you to DOH for always coming through, but we need more. So the ask that they have here this year, I truly, truly want this ask. And as Rep. Felipe said, this is not just a piece of paper, this is a statement. So we stand by this statement. And for the advocates next to me and behind me, they stand by it as well. No matter where you live, there is someone homeless. No matter, I'm tired of hearing the drug situation. I'm from Norwalk, Connecticut. Average studio is $2,800 a month. But I'm also from Norwalk, Connecticut, where a New York person will come in and buy a whole building. And I got an elderly lady that's 65 on a fixed income. The rent was probably $1,600. Now it's 28 because he bought the building. You do the math, it doesn't add up. We sit on the floor for 11 and a half hours to pass a housing bill. That gets vetoed. We sit on the floor for 9 more hours to pass another one. That passes. But this should be one of the main things in this housing bill. This should be one of the main things in the state of Connecticut. You cannot say to me, we are the wealthiest state, or one of the wealthiest states, with our wonderful school systems, but we have a homelessness crisis. You gotta make it make sense. So thank you so much to everybody in here fighting. Truly appreciate you guys. Let's keep this momentum going.
You heard from some youth between myself and Representative Roberts, and obviously we sit in these seats and we do this work. But for the people on the ground and do work, there's youth there too. I want to introduce you all from Journey Home, Adriana Negron.
Good afternoon. My name is Adriana Negron. I am the Coordinated Homeless Prevention Manager at Journey Home. I'm grateful to be standing here today alongside the End Homelessness Caucus, our colleagues, and the Housing Committee chairs. We are united by a shared understanding. Homelessness is not inevitable, but it is preventable when we act early. Homelessness does not begin at the shelter door. It begins when a senior on a fixed income must choose between rent and basic needs. When a youth loses the last place they felt safe, and when a family has income, but not enough for a security deposit or an unexpected crisis. And I say this as not just someone professionally, but personally. I know firsthand that struggle, that anxiety, that fear. For over 20 years, my own family relied on the very system that I now work in. Without flexible prevention support like assistance with rent gaps or deposits, we eventually ran out of options. That is what homelessness, or well, that's just an example of what homelessness looks like before it ever becomes visible. Today, I work at Journey Home, the backbone organization coordinating our region's homeless response system. In 2025 alone, Journey Home, alongside our partners and committed landlords, have helped keep 331 individuals, families, young people housed. Not through shelter stays, not even through a CAN appointment, but through timely support, collaboration, prevention, and flexible funds. That is 331 lives stabilized and public dollars saved. But in my opinion, that is not enough. If Connecticut is serious about solving homelessness, then we have to get serious about preventing homelessness. Prevention is not only humane, it is one of the most cost-effective strategies that we have. Today, alongside my colleagues, we are calling for a $10 million annual investment in a flexible housing crisis response fund to stop homelessness before it ever even has to begin. This fund supports rapid problem solving, utility assistance, mediation, security deposits, rental reals, can never pronounce that word right, legal services, and short-term stabilization costs. The exact interventions that keep families, seniors, and youth housed and out of shelters. Now, if $10 million sounds bold, let me be clear. Doing nothing is the most expensive choice we can make. And if I'm being really honest, it's our neighbors experiencing homelessness and Connecticut taxpayers who will be paying the price first. A single shelter stay can cost the state tens of thousands of dollars per household each year, not including the downstream impacts on the healthcare system, education, child welfare, and workforce participation. Prevention works faster, costs less, and keeps the families stable. And right now, the stakes have never been higher. With federal funding uncertain, Connecticut cannot afford to wait and react. We must lead. We must help continue to build a system that is proactive, resilient, and smart with taxpayer dollars. This is also a friendly reminder, because I don't want to come across rude. This is also an election year. Voters are watching. They talk about it in the morning, they talk about it in the afternoon, when they're on the city bus, when they are at the shelters. It is in conversation. So, as I say, voters are watching, not just what we say, but what we are all collectively choosing to fund. They're watching to see whether we respond to a crisis with courage or with delay. So, I'll end it here. With $10 million in flexible funding to prevent homelessness is not radical. It is responsible, and it is proven. Thank you.
Thank you, Adriana. And before I get to our next speaker, I do want to just say my Senate co-chair, Senator Marks, is feeling under the weather, lost her voice. But can we just say thank you to Senator Marks for her support? She would definitely be here if she wasn't sick. I grew up around this work, and I didn't, I wasn't intimately involved, but I knew that there was always somebody fighting, because in my life, I had somebody like Carmen Colon. She ran Alpha Community Services in the city of Bridgeport. We've done the walk to end homelessness at Captain's Cove for over 25 years. And I'm proud to call her a member of my family and a friend. Carmen, can you come up here and say a few words?
Thank you, Representative Felipe, who I dare call my son. As he stated, my name is Carmen Colon. I'm the president and CEO of Pacific House in Stanford. For over 30 years, I ran Alpha Community Services YMCA in Bridgeport. Unfortunately, for over 4 decades, our homeless response system has been grossly underfunded. On a yearly basis, we are begging for a COLA increase. And we heard Adriana state that it might seem a lot, like we're asking for $10 million. Every year, every month, we sit around putting together what we have called our statement, what our representatives are calling our statement, because it is our statement, wondering whether we're asking for too much. Well, then I stand here and say, this state of Connecticut, who is experiencing an affordability crisis, continues to expect us and the homeless response system to respond to their call, to respond to their constituents' call. And I am not afraid to call it what it is. Yes, it is an election year. And do you actually think that our state of Connecticut is going to do better when we have $200 or $400 per couple given to us to say, hey, let's save the day? We are not saving the day, ladies and gentlemen. We are not. Also, every day we get those phone calls of those senior citizens that can no longer live in their homes. As Representative Roberts stated, they can no longer live in their homes because they cannot afford to live in those homes. I spoke about this COLA increase. We are asking for at least 7%. And again, I am not saying I am sorry for asking for that, because this system, the state of Connecticut, is very wealthy and does ask us to answer their call. We're also expected to take care of the needs of the population in the state of Connecticut in our entry system, where this entry system does not even have case workers that we can afford to pay at a living wage because we don't have the funds. Our entry system has case workers making between $40,000 and $45,000 a year. We cannot hire a master's level social worker to take care of those needs because we cannot afford that. We are asking for $15.8 million to expand that point of entry into our system. If this state of Connecticut wants more from us, we are here. I stated that I have been in here now for over 35 years doing this. And I have more energy than I did those 35 years ago. And why do I have that energy? Why do I have that energy? Because I was last year I said, I know we're going to get cold weather into the governor's budget. And we did. Thank you. And now I know that the start of the End Homelessness Caucus, something that we needed to be able to advocate for us from within. From within. We are out there advocating. We needed the caucus from within. They're advocating for us. Governor, representatives, senators, on both sides of the aisle, because this is an issue that affects both sides of the aisle. Let Connecticut be the state that ends homelessness for once and for all. I will leave you with this. I will leave you with this today. Before those individuals out there became homeless, you heard it loud and clear. They were housed. It is the fact that eviction is doing this to this state of Connecticut. One more thing. Let us not allow for one more undocumented person in the state of Connecticut to lose their life in the cold weather because they're afraid to come to our own shelters. They are afraid. And let's look at who is dying out there. So many human beings that unfortunately, due to the lack of documents, they are dying on our streets in the state of Connecticut. Connecticut, let us do better.
Thank you, Carmen. When Carmen called me last year and we got to starting the End Homelessness Caucus, the first call I made was to Eleni Kavros-DeGraw, Representative Eleni Kavros-DeGraw, because I know that even though we come from vastly different communities on different parts of the state, especially on this issue, but on many others, as she's a partner of our housing committee on planning and development, our hearts are in the same place. Eleni, can you say a few words?
So when Sarah Fox started at CCEH, we started these larger press conferences together. And I believe last year I said, I'm really tired of this. And I am tired of us having to beg, because to be perfectly blunt with you, it is the legislature that really does support more and more funding for this cause, because we are hearing from our communities. Now, as Rep. Felipe said, you wouldn't think that someone from a communities like Avon and Canton would really care about homelessness, because frankly, we're not the ones who are providing the services, of course, but that doesn't mean we don't have homeless people. That just means that we're not doing our fair share to provide services to the homeless. Those are two very different conversations. I just want to share a few things that have been said to me over the time that we've been working on these issues. A few years ago, it was only 5,000 people that were outside. And I was told by someone in this building, it's out of 3.5 million, it's not that many. 5,000 human beings, it's not that many out of 3.5 million. What if that's your loved one? What if that is your grandmother who went through a medical bankruptcy and is now one of the 2,000 and some people over the age of 55 that are now on the street, the majority of them women? And not just on the street, in the woods too, because we can't forget, homelessness looks very different depending on what community you're in. We have had the very cynical conversations about, well, we gave this much money last year and we still have homeless people. We've had the cynical conversations about, well, they're just a bunch of drug addicts. The cynical conversations about, well, they're just undocumented. Why is it that we think that once the roof comes off of someone's head, that they are suddenly subhuman and are no longer valuable to us as a society? Why? I know that in this room we have people who've been previously impacted by homelessness. Sarah shared her story. Our friend from Journey Home shared her story. These are families. These are people who have often, through no fault of their own, have gone through experiences that have led them to be in these positions. I cannot tell you how many times I talk to people who are living in shelter who are working 2 jobs. So hearing that, well, these people aren't worth it because they're lazy or they're poor or their bad decisions have led to this. Damn it, that's not the case. That is not the case. In the richest state, in the richest nation, in 2026, the fact that we are still having to stand here and beg for basic needs for people, it's ridiculous. And I want to say just a little bit about criminalization. We had a conversation earlier this year about criminalization. We had a press conference on it, as a matter of fact. I believe several of us sitting behind me, we were all there. I think we came to an agreement that we were not going to criminalize homelessness in Connecticut. I seem to recall that. I think you heard that. And yet, if you noticed, that didn't end up in 5002. It didn't end up in 8002. We were able to ban hostile architecture and get some laundry for homeless people. Now, I can tell you, those of us who really care about this issue, we're pretty upset about the fact that we have not addressed the fact that no one is a criminal for not having a house. That's right. And while I understand that our municipalities have challenges, it is up to all of us, every single last 169 municipalities, to figure out what the solution is. I would like to thank the governor and the Department of Housing for upping the dollars this year, and especially for the cold weather shelters being open, because we've gotten a little lucky these past few winters. We are not lucky this winter. We've talked about the cold. It will be negative 30 degrees this weekend. These are winters we have not seen for a very long time, which is why we are seeing these numbers of people dying everywhere we go. However, and this is a really big however, I am not sure what it is going to take for the executive branch to hear us when we say, not one more. Not one more. There is absolutely no reason, because at the end of the day, it's like, oh, we don't have any money for this, we don't have any money for that, we have the money. We have the money. We have the money, and we know how to distribute it, and we know where it needs to go, and we know how to end this crisis, because as you may recall, Governor Malloy did it for veterans previously. But now our veterans numbers are back up. All of our numbers are up. Thousands of people. When I saw that number, 8,172 people, 35% of those are unsheltered. Again, several years ago, the number was only in the 5,000 range. We can do better, we should do better, and this is the year to do better.
I don't think I said this earlier, and many of you know, but I hail from the great city of Bridgeport, and we've, over the years, dealt with our share of loss. We dealt with loss recently because of this particular issue, and I know every time that we deal with that, we come up to these buildings and we talk about all the different reasons why that is. But one of the first phone calls I would get, because she's one of the best people that we have in the city of Bridgeport when it comes to constituent services, is Councilwoman Anita Martinez, and I want to introduce you to her now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you to the state delegation leadership for giving me the opportunity to speak here on today. My name is Anita Martinez. I was born and raised in Bridgeport. I have a background in human service. I have worked with the homeless population for well over 20 plus years. I am also an elected official for the city of Bridgeport, serving as a council member for the 139th district. I am speaking on today to address the serious and critical lack of housing, shelters, safe havens, economic hardship, health crisis. The city of Bridgeport lacks serious means of shelter, most importantly funding, as well as accountability. Last year, I drafted a resolution to our city council to hold our mayor accountable to the lack of sheltering that we have in the city of Bridgeport for the population that we see throughout the city of Bridgeport that are homeless. Homeless is one of America's most visible yet least understood challenges. It affects people from all walks of life who struggle due to hardship, lack of affordable housing, and other barriers. The reality is that most are forced into homelessness by circumstances beyond their control. Addictions, domestic violence, mental health, job loss and unemployment, post-traumatic stress, throwaway teens, relationship brokenness, grief, and simply because they had no support. We must do better as a state. We must build the means for the needs. We need funding for affordability of housing for the most challenged and vulnerable individuals. In ending, I would like to state that on January 31st, 2026, the City of Bridgeport had its first victim that was found deceased outdoors due to freezing conditions. It bothers me because on Thursday, I left Chris Rosario's fundraiser and I went straight to this individual who I have been engaging with for 2 years at the same location. Very stubborn, refuses shelter, feels comfortable in his little tent. I take him his coffee at times. At times I hand him his $5 to simply go across the street and get his coffee. It was 9:48 that night that I said to him, "It is extremely cold. Please let's go to the shelter." He said, "I am fine. I am okay. I want to stay here." He has said at times to me, "You're invading my space. You're violating my rights." For 2 years we tried, not simply myself, others. Saturday morning I received a phone call that someone that works at Bridgeport Hospital that simply stops every single morning to bring him breakfast, he was unresponsive to the calls out the tent. When they opened the tent, there he was, frozen to death. To my dear friend Carmen Colon, he was of Dominican descent, was not legal here, refused to go to the shelter for those purposes. Yesterday I posted on my Facebook page in search of his next of kin. He has been identified by Detective Holt, who is currently investigating this case. In order for them to proceed, they have to notify the next of kin. Over 27 inboxes I received in my Facebook posts asking the name, the description, family members who have loved ones who they have not seen, who they have not followed through with. I couldn't provide that information because I have to give Detective Host the dignity and respect to the next of kin to identify this individual. Will he have a funeral? We don't know. Will they identify him as next of kin to show the relationship? I don't know. But these are the type of things that I see day in and day out. From my first snowstorm, I have been beating the streets. And I would like to thank our social worker, Linda Lubin, who works with the Bridgeport Police Department as the CIT team, for nonstop attempts. We have been out in the streets every single day or every other day till 11, 1 o'clock in the morning, still trying to save individuals to bring to the shelter, to the city of Bridgeport, to Cheryl Bell, to Prospect House Shelter, for around-the-clock open doors. As of today, there have been 127 individuals who have reported to the warming center. Mario, thank you. He is doing a phenomenal job over at the Y. We have individuals who have reported to Prospect House Shelter. Bridgeport Rescue Mission has even opened their doors to accept some of the individuals. And for the CAN, for funding the shelter hotel that they are currently utilizing for the over capacity that we have here in the city of Bridgeport. Just yesterday, 7 individuals surrendered to the shelter. Today and tomorrow, all boots on the ground, we don't know how many of those that are still out there we will have to attempt to save. Not everyone wants to go to the shelters. Not everyone wants to leave their small little tent. They're comfortable. We have one young man on the corner of Bell and Boston Avenue that I tell you that I jump out of my sleep. I have reached out to the fire chief. I have reached out to our police chief. He is living in that tent, has been living there, has family. Family has stepped up. This is his comfort zone. This is where he wants to live. This is where he's comfortable. This is where you are invading his space 3 weeks ago, he set his own tent on fire while he was in the tent because he is burning a garbage can with wood, and it was sparkling and his tent caught on fire. By the grace of God, he did not lose his life. I have lost so many nights of sleep these last couple of weeks due to what we are experiencing here in the world, in the city of Bridgeport, and throughout. I urge our governor, our legislative, our senators to think of those that are less fortunate than we are. For those that need us the most. $10 million sounds like a lot of money, but that's like handing someone $1. It is not. We need more than $10 million to continue to operate the means, the needs, the shelter, the housing, the staff. Without any staff, we can't fulfill the means, the needs, the therapeutic services that are needed. Governor, I urge you to please find a way, meet the needs for those that are in need. I thank you all. I thank you. I will continue this fight to my very last breath. Thank you.
I think just listening to her, you could have drawn a map to a few people in her district that are dealing with this. That's how close to the situation Councilwoman Martinez is. But somebody who's also close to the situation, every time that I try to do some of this work in the committee, the other co-chair of the End Homelessness Caucus, Rep. Lori Sweet, is always somebody who comes to the table, who's really looking out for people in a real way. And even though she's from Hamden, they're right next door to New Haven, and they've been up and down, especially municipally. I'm looking at you, Mayor Aldiker. Do a little better. Rep. Sweet.
Good afternoon. My name is Lori Sweet. I represent Hamden's 91st District, and I'm proud to be the co-chair of the first ever End Homelessness Caucus. Last year, at least 130 people died sleeping outside. This was a memorial that some of us up here attended, and these are some of their names. Homelessness is up 45%. Warming centers are at capacity. There isn't just one solution to ending homelessness. We need all the advocates in this room and a bunch more folks who aren't with us to solve this. CCEH is proposing a comprehensive legislative agenda to keep people inside, to prevent homelessness, to respond, and to house. And we need a coordinated effort to make sure that these needs are met. I'm so proud of the way that we came together to ensure that part of the Federal Reserve Fund was used to backfill federal cuts to rapid and supportive housing. And I thank the governor and the Department of Housing and our colleagues in this room for making those asks a priority and a reality. And now we plan for this session. We need to do everything that we can to keep folks stably housed and housed with dignity. We must pass Just Cause. This is a homeless prevention tool. Yep. We need to annualize cold weather, given what we have seen just these last few days alone. And we need to expand our idea of extreme weather to include extreme heat. We should take up, we should take up clear protocols for both. And we should expand funding for RAP and case management. And the ask is a modest $113 million. And lastly, we must be ready to respond to Trump's executive order and the Supreme Court decision on Gloria Johnson. Connecticut must stop ticketing, sweeping, and arresting folks for living outside. We have to be better than Trump. We must say housing, not handcuffs, and mean it. And we can show what we mean by passing the Gloria Johnson Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Sweet. In doing this work, I think one of the things you like to do is figure out how they do it around the state of Connecticut. And while I did criticize a minute ago the city of New Haven, I know that the providers in New Haven do a very good job. So I want to call up Claudette Kidd from the Downtown Evening Soup Kitchen.
afternoon. As he stated, my name is Claudette Kidd from downtown Evening Soup Kitchen in New Haven. I wanted to share some ongoing concerns and challenges that we're currently facing regarding shelter and warming centers access for our unhoused clients. Having lived experience of staying in a shelter in 2017, I am able to relate to many of the individuals who serve and meet them where they're at. I often go beyond my job duties to advocate for these clients and connect them to additional services and resources. At this time, shelters remain full and many individuals are turned away from warming centers due to lack of space. Although there has been some expansion of warming centers, not all clients can attend because of mental health challenges and substance use disorders. When available, hotels have been an important option for individuals who are unable to tolerate crowded environments. Staff are frequently working overtime to fill open spaces in warming centers. Desk continues to work closely with Columbus House and United Way with their CAN system, their CAN navigators, to help identify and place clients in available beds. However, this is extremely challenging. Our work is also limited by our 9-to-5 schedule, while some organizations such as Connections and Liberty are able to engage clients more effectively due to their flexible hours. Additionally, many clients continue living outdoors, and we are constantly providing survival supplies to help them stay warm. Tragically, a client passed away last week in the Fairhaven area due to the cold weather. There was no mention in the news or the local newspapers, which highlights how invisible the homeless population often is. It is important to note that some staff working in this field are themselves on the brink of homelessness, yet continue to show up daily to support clients. It is incredibly difficult knowing that many individuals remain outside in below freezing conditions while we are unable to reach them and we are able to return to our homes at night in the warmth. Thank you for taking this time. I felt it's important to share the reality of what we are currently experiencing on the front lines. This is my experience as a client engagement specialist for Downtown Evening Soup Kitchen. Thank you.
And before I call up Jared from the United Way, I just want to acknowledge those legislators who have joined us. We have the co-chair of the Planning and Development Committee on the Senate side, M.D. Rahman. We have Senator Matt Lesser, Representative Minnie Gonzalez from right here in Hartford, Representative Juan Candelaria, Representative Marcus Brown, Representative Mike D'Amico, and Representative Anthony Nolan, as well as Representative M.J. Shannon, hiding in the back with Ann Hughes. Yes, and Ann Hughes. They're hiding from me, I'm sorry. But this is one of the first folks on the agenda, and I apologize. I don't have an introduction for. I don't know this gentleman very well, but from the United Way, we have Jared Bruises.
How many nights is too many nights for our kids to have to stay in shelter and languish? 60? 90? A year or more? What's enough? Do we think about the trauma that they experience by going to these places and the tight, cramped quarters that they have to endure day in and day out? Because there's no outlet for them to go to. There's no resources for them to exit housing. You know what the solution is? Housing. Right? We can make sure that we have a steady flow of folks from shelter to housing with the right interventions and resources. And that's why we, as a strong and united coalition, demand and expect that this legislature will do what's right. And our governor will sign into law sweeping reform to ensure that we have the resources needed to respond to the crisis we're experiencing today. It's simple. We need to house these folks. And how do we do it? Through expanding the rental assistance program here in the state of Connecticut. Simple. A $50 million increase to ensure that nearly 3,400 families, seniors, those that are disabled, little children, families that can't work because they're supporting children with disabilities in their home, or families that are taking care of aging parents. Rental assistance is important, it's vital, and unfortunately only 1 in 4 eligible households receive access to it. 1 in 4, leaving many in peril. But to do it well, we know that we need wraparound services, an intensive case management service to ensure that those that we house remain housed, that they're stable. Because we've also seen as a system those that we have housed that didn't have those wraparound services struggled. Not because it was their fault, but because we didn't have the resource as a system to provide the support that those residents needed. And you know what it does? It erodes our credibility and damages our relationships with the landlords that we need the most. The good landlords, not the slum landlords that we know that are out there, but the good landlords that work alongside our programs day in and day out, shoulder to shoulder. This isn't an ask. This isn't the agenda. This is the mandate. $50 million for rental assistance program, and just slightly over $32 million to ensure that we provide the wraparound assistance that folks in our community need, deserve. We can act on it. We can do it. Legislature, Governor, let's get it done.
I got to get to know this guy because I agree with everything he said, even the numbers. But next, we have somebody who I know cares about everyone on the Human Services Committee, has been fighting very hard, especially when it comes to healthcare and when we talk about housing people, in this case, as cold as it is healthcare. Senator Mellis.
Thank you, Representative Felipe, and you know this hits home for a lot of reasons, but you know, we make assumptions. I know people make assumptions about people living in homelessness, about who they are, where they live, what their circumstances are. I was in my district last night in Rocky Hill at the Concierge Apartments, which has been all over the news because it has been shut down because of burst pipes and years of deferred maintenance, and 700 units are displaced. People scrambling to find housing, and we were there in the leasing office in the night with people who were desperate, who had no place to go. And they did nothing wrong. They had just simply gotten a lease an apartment, and it was the wrong place. And so we're working to figure out where to find housing for these folks. Now, technically, those folks are now homeless right now, right? And there are lots of reasons why people become wind up living in homelessness, why people are unhoused. But there's one big reason, which is we have a housing crisis in this state, and we haven't done enough to ensure that the people of the state have a place to stay at night. You know, in my neighborhood in Middletown, I'm a couple blocks away from our soup kitchen, a couple blocks away from our warming shelter. A lot of the folks on our streets are folks who I know personally, and I know that we have a lot more work to do as a state to do right by them, to ensure that we're taking care of one another. We have a lot of headwinds coming down from Washington, from the federal government. We are a state, though, that takes care of one another, and if we're going to continue to do that, then we have to make the needed investments in our backbone, in our social services system, to ensure that this winter, next winter, people who need housing, need a place to go, are taken care of, and that we are doing what we can to stop homelessness in the first place, that we're housing people, and that we're providing the funds necessary to take care of one another. Thank you very much.
And before we get to our closer, who I know you're going to think is powerful, and she is because she's done this work for a very long time, I do want to acknowledge two people, Representative Jillian Gilchrist, who was here earlier in the press conference but did have to step out, and Senator Saud Anwar, who wanted to speak here today but is with a patient because he's a medical doctor and also a state senator. But we're getting towards the end, and I would encourage you to go down to Milford, to the Bethel Center, and meet this next speaker, because she's going to talk about what she's seen over the last few years because she lives and breathes this work. I've gotten to know her over the last 2 years, and blown away every single time, because when you talk about people who really do this stuff, you're not talking about me. I sit in a room, I talk about it, I try to pass good policy. But these are boots on the ground, hands on the mud. Jennifer Paradis.
All right, are we here? We're good? We feel good? We feel ready, energized, powerful? Yes. All right, good afternoon. It's an honor to be here and to serve as the steering committee co-chair for the CT Ken and Homelessness campaign, a statewide network of 75 providers and partners working to end a crisis that has already taken too many lives. For the past 11 years, I've served as at the Bethel Center in Milford, where individuals, families, and veterans from 13 suburban communities come seeking the most basic human needs: food, shelter, safety, and dignity. 2025 was a transformational year. It clarified our values. It exposed our non-negotiables. And above all, it demanded truth. About 6 months ago, I was sitting with our guests at the center and talked about what we were seeing nationally. Federal actions targeting people experiencing homelessness in cities like DC and Chicago. At first, we laughed. How could anything be worse than sleeping outside every night? How could our experience get worse? When then it became clear what was the real target was not just tents and sidewalks. It was humanity itself. One guest, a US veteran with honorable discharge, said something I will never forget. He said, "I feel like I'm losing my personhood, my sovereignty. I fought for everyone to have that." He then said, and I wrote it down on my whiteboard immediately because I'm a little forgetful sometimes, he said, "You cannot separate money from humanity. You cannot remove humanity from this conversation." That truth must guide our policy moving forward. Take McKinney-Vento, the federal law that guarantees students experiencing homelessness have access to education. In the 2022-2023 school year, over 5,000 Connecticut students experienced homelessness, a 28% increase from the year before. Nearly half were chronically absent. I know this personally. When I was a homeless high school student, my McKinney-Vento liaison made sure I stayed in school. She paid for SAT prep courses, she paid for my volleyball uniform, she paid for school trips, so I felt like a normal kid. They removed every barrier so I could just learn. Those lifelines are now under threat from the proposed federal funding cuts and policies from the Trump administration. Connecticut must lead, just as we did when Representative Stuart McKinney himself, this bill's namesake, aimed to protect the futures of our most vulnerable, our children. Next, housing. Let's be honest, is it really affordable and aligned with our work to end homelessness in our communities? For families exiting homelessness, housing priced at 80% AMI, 60% AMI are still out of reach. Seniors on fixed incomes, single parents, minimum wage workers, people with disabilities, this housing is not affordable to them. Further, the need for housing continues to eclipse availability. As Connecticut makes historic investments in housing, we must ensure that at least 30% of new state-funded